So I think we should start now. Hello, everyone. I am Aditya Thakur, and on behalf of the Geeks for Geeks family, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you joining us today and for the closing ceremony of Game-of-Source. And what an amazing 10-day event it was. We had taken up 70 plus issues for web and app development. We had student participants from over 145 plus Geeks for Geeks student chapters across India. And we had mentors deliver amazing sessions on open source contribution to ignite the minds. And the party isn't over yet. I am really excited to welcome Eddy, who is the founder of Dashboard Hub and one of 14 GitHub Stars among 40 plus million users. He's an open source DevRel with over 15 plus years of experience as a full stack developer. And today he'll be guiding us on how to pursue open source as a career. So, hello, Eddy. Thank you for taking time out for this. We are really excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here. I'm really excited to geek out with you all. So thank you very, very much. I can't wait to talk about open source and how everyone can benefit from it.
Sure. So, I think you should take over now.
Okay, let's go. Right, everyone get comfortable and have your questions ready because the Q&A is my favorite part. I won't wait until the end to get into some of your questions, but if I do miss them as we go along, please do just put another question in the chat and I will hopefully get around to it. And if I don't, just keep nudging me. So I'm so excited to be here. I can definitely put focus on open source for the success that I've had, right? I've had the success that I've had because of open source. And I really want all of you to benefit from that because from open source, you can not only benefit from the technical improvements, but you can also benefit from other skills like communication, networking. And we're going to get into all of that and how then that can help you accelerate your career and how you can make money directly and indirectly. So let's go. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. I see some people saying that in the chat, already got some questions coming in. So do put those in. So in today, we're going to cover what is open source, a brief overview. I'm pretty sure you all know what it is, but just in case anyone has any doubts, I'm going to talk very briefly about that, why you should care about open source and how it can accelerate your career. And like I said, the Q&A, my favorite part. So very, very brief overview, a bit about me. So let me just share my screen. This is my GitHub account. If you haven't customized your GitHub account, you really should. It helps you stand out. And hopefully we get time to go a bit more into that. So this is my GitHub account. And I do live streams and videos on YouTube. So come over and say, hey, I'm sure the organizers will share the link in the chat as well. And then we have a community. If you want to get more into open source, if you are serious, you have a community, you're welcome to join. I think it's a great way to have that motivation from the rest of the community. And as mentioned, I'm a GitHub star, so I get lots of awesome swag like limited edition t-shirts, kind of like plushies, or as we also say, rubber ducks. When I get stuck, I can kind of say, hey, I'm stuck on this, and I explain it, and I usually figure out what the issue is. Right, okay. Enough about me. Let's get into this. So what is open source? So when people ask me what is open source, the way I explain it is it's like any other social platform, like Instagram or Facebook, Twitter. You can star someone's project just like you can like someone's picture. You can retweet it, reshare it. But on GitHub, you can do so much more. You can actually contribute back to the project and make it better. And that helps the project, helps the community, and helps you. That's why I love the Q&A, because I learn from the Q&A, from the questions. It gets me to think about different things. It helps me to look at it from different points of view. So it's really important. It is social coding, but so much more. Really, really is. And GitHub is no longer just about code anymore. It is about the communication and making money. It is another revenue stream. All my success has really come down to open source, and nothing else I can say about that. It really, really has, and I want everyone else to benefit from it too. But remember one thing: it is a marathon, not a sprint. If you plan to spend all this weekend, like 100 hours this weekend, okay, that's physically not possible. And then hopefully you'll have like the benefit, then you won't. It's like brushing your teeth, right? You don't, wake up in the morning and go, oh, I've got to brush my teeth, the stress. You don't panic about it. Just go and brush your teeth for 2-3 minutes. And the benefit is there. There's a little bit of benefit there. But if you forget to brush your teeth one day, your teeth aren't going to go yellow. They're not going to fall out. Over the months, over the years, the benefit is where you get benefit from brushing your teeth every day. So with open source, think about it the same way, little and often. And that's where you'll get the benefits. You're not going to get the benefit directly tomorrow, but you will in the long term. And that's where it separates people who are really committed to accelerating their career and standing out and want open source to help them longer term, help them get more money, be it from getting the job that they want, from getting the salary increase they want, or the client or the projects that they want. And yes, you've got to really get into it. It takes time to get into, and we're gonna show you how you can get into that. Awesome to have all the messages in the chat. Keep the questions coming. Thanks for all the hellos. I really appreciate it. If you do have a question, try and prepend it with a Q, so hopefully I won't miss it. Less likely to miss it. Okay, so I've mentioned a few of the things, kind of, what is open source. I do really believe open source is for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a coder or not a coder, right? Some people want to be in tech and they don't enjoy coding. They're not good at coding, and that's fine. There are so many roles around coding now that are needed. The hackathons that I have won have not where we've been 4 or 5 developers in a team. It's actually where we've only been half the team have been developers, because the other half have had other skills and they've brought different dynamics. They've raised different questions. And those are the hackathons that I have won. I mean that seriously. So now when I go to hackathons, I don't try and get a team of 4 or 5 coders. Try and get a team of maybe 2 coders, 2-3 coders. And I want a team of other people, 2 or 3 other people, to be different things like, UI, UX, testing, business analyst, product owner, whatever it is. The title isn't so important, but I want different people's perspective. And you may think, well, kind of, I'm new to tech or I'm new to open source. What benefit can you provide? And actually the benefit that you can provide is massive. Really, really is. It's so important. Oh, I see a question came up. So the first question I had to put now, I saw some repos and technologies used were like booms. How do we learn? Oh, the question's gone. I'm guessing it will come up again in a minute. Oh, here we go. I can see it in the chat. Right. Okay. So how do we learn them? I saw the first question. I'll put up now, like saw some repos and technologies used were like boom. Not sure I quite get that question. If you could re-ask it, but I'm kind of getting into that now where you don't have to be an expert in that technology. And you can add so much value by being a fresh pair of eyes to that project, be it from a new technology point of view or new to tech. You can add so much value because you've got a new perspective. And open source projects need to be inclusive, and even non-open source projects need to be inclusive as well. And that's why I love it when I get new people who join our team on an open source project team or on my client projects, whatever it is. When I get someone new to the project, the first thing I do is have a look at the repo. Let me know what the project's about. And they usually go, oh, but how can I look at it if you don't tell me what the project's about? And I say to them, but if you can't look at the repo and tell me what the project is about, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with the project. So it's such a great way for them to say, okay, I understand the project does this. I've kind of looked at this, but you've mentioned this term a lot. What does it mean? And then we know there's a gap in our documentation. And then they'll try the quick start and they'll say, well, I've done step 1 and step 2, but there's something between step 2 and 3. There's something missing. And then we'll go, right, we're missing something. So you can add so much value by being that new person on that project or the new person to the team. So don't let it scare you. You can add value. But there are some projects out there that don't see this in value, and you want to ignore those. Most of them do. So you want the inclusive projects. And the way you can look for those inclusive projects is check the closed issues and closed pull requests. And by closed pull requests, I mean the ones that have not been merged. And just see, there's nothing wrong with those issues and pull requests that haven't been merged, but check that they've been closed in a friendly way. As in, if the pull request was closed and not accepted, did the project maintainer write, thank you very much for this pull request. Is it actually not a feature we want at the moment? Have you thought about looking at issue 1, 2, and 3, for example? And it means they want to be inclusive, but it just wasn't a feature they wanted. Whereas if it's just closed without any comment, you probably don't want to contribute to that project because the project maintainer is, probably not very inclusive. Okay, so I see the questions come up from Sanyan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Sayan again. So what I mean is I looked into some Google, I guess that's Google Summer of Code projects, and their code base are complex. How to get used to them or learn it? That's a great question. And if you pick big projects like React or Angular or Node, they are going to be quite hard to get into because the barrier to entry can be a bit high because there's a lot to learn. My recommendation is maybe pick slightly smaller projects, but if you're really adamant about getting involved in those projects for whatever reason, then that's fine. It just takes a little bit longer to get into it and get involved in the conversation, right? If you went to this project and you said, hey, I want to do this issue, or I've got this idea that I want to do, can someone help me? You're going to hear crickets. No one's going to kind of, give you a lot of help because they don't know you. If you've got a specific question, as in, I've got this question really specific and focused, you are more likely to get an answer. And that's really important to make your questions really specific. But if you said, hey, I just want to do an issue for this project, then it's quite vague and quite generic. Even if you mentioned an issue number, you're less likely to get help. So the way you can improve that is get involved in the conversation before you start trying to contribute. If someone's raised an issue, a bug, can you verify it? Can you add value to it? It's about adding value. It's not about raising issues, raising pull requests, doing commits. It's about adding value. And that goes for open source projects and company and client projects. So if you can add value to other people's issues or review someone else's pull requests, even if you don't know the project very well, like I said, you can add value by giving your new perspective. So someone's raised a pull request and you review it. The project maintainer will review it from a technical coding point of view, but you could review it from a documentation point of view. If they've added documentation to that pull request as well as a new feature, does the documentation make sense to you? Add a comment and say, this makes sense, or no, it doesn't. And give some reasons why, or maybe and do some investigation. Like if you include this, it might help a bit more. Because when people see you adding value to the project, when you say, hey, I want to do this issue, then they're going to go, you know what? This person's serious about getting involved in our project. We're going to invest in time in them because they want to invest time in our project. You can't just take. You got to kind of give first to get people who want to help you and give you their time. Like to give you an example, there's one open source project. I won't mention the name of the project of the person, but an open source project, and someone was contributing to documentation all the time. That's what they were doing all the time. So when the project got £20 million in funding, who do you think they went to look after the documentation officially? They paid them officially to look after the documentation, and they were doing it for free before, and now they're just getting paid to do something they love anyway. So it's really, really important. Okay, hopefully that answers that question. So Hina, awesome to see you here. Did a live stream with Hina and Alexa earlier on today, and that was awesome. Thanks for coming to say hi. Right, okay. I don't want to get stuck on too many issues. I'm trying to do a light touch on everything, on different topics, and you can all ask me questions because I know I'm conscious of time. I really want to get into the Q&A. I really want to answer your questions. So do ask as we go along, but we'll have some more time at the end as well. So I mentioned it's a marathon, not a sprint, and I want to talk about, I know you all really want to know about the money side as well. So the question was great of how to look at, bigger projects, how to get involved in those. And we can dig deeper into that a bit later on if you want as well. But the money side. So I briefly showed you my GitHub profile. On there, there's a sponsor button, and that's officially by GitHub. And that allows me for people to pay me. So I can put a sponsorship button on my GitHub profile, and I can put it on my projects, on my organizations, wherever I want. And that allows people to sponsor me on GitHub, a bit like Patreon. They can pay me $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever they want. And GitHub takes no commission. So that's how I make money directly from open source. They take no commission, which is awesome. And in GitHub, also, I think for everyone's first year, I don't remember the exact details of it, they were matching every donation. So I think I was making, say, $100 a month, and GitHub will give me an additional $100, which was awesome. So you can do that. So definitely apply for that. I haven't known anyone to be rejected for that. So although you have to apply, it's really easy. I think it's just a few simple questions, and definitely apply for that. And if it's not available in your area yet, still apply or register to get notified, because I'm guessing they're prioritizing the areas by demand. So if you've got your area and you get your friends who are on GitHub to apply as well, then they'll prioritize your area. And I think they're in over 30 countries at the moment, and that number's increasing all the time. So that's how I make money directly. And if you're looking to sponsor someone and to support them, and you've got, say, $5 to sponsor someone, don't give it to one person. Try and spread it out. So if anyone does want to sponsor me, just give me $1. Like anything extra, give to somebody else. It's good to kind of spread that out and share that out. How do I make money indirectly? Indirectly, open source puts me on the map, right? It puts me on the radar. No one's asked me for a CV in years. I haven't done an interview in years. People contact me, be it big companies, GitHub, or Facebook, Google, whatever it is, and they want to have a conversation, and they want to see how I can add value to their projects and their teams, their whatever it is. And this goes for high street banks in the UK, government departments in the UK. They contact me, and either they find me on GitHub or they've come across me on social, and then they go look at my GitHub and they can see how I collaborate. Because remember, I mentioned GitHub is not just about code. It is also about communication and collaboration. Actually, it's more about communication and collaboration. So to give an example, when I hire people for my clients or for my projects, I do look at your GitHub, 100%. I'm not going to lie. I look at your GitHub, but I'm probably not looking for what you think I'm looking for. So I am looking at your code today, but I'm not looking to see how great it is today. I'm actually looking to see, was your code a month ago, like your code today, was it better than it was a code a month ago? Have you improved? Are you continually learning? That's like the most important. And then the other most important thing, so this is kind of like joint one, is I want to see how you collaborate with people. That's why it's important for you to raise pull requests and to raise issues and also reply to other people's issues and pull requests, because I want to see how you respond. I want to see, are you collaborative or are you aggressive to other people that you don't know? So I think that's really important. And also, I want to see how people communicate, not only in terms of are they friendly, but do they make it easier, right? People are really busy and you want to kind of, as we say, spoon feed people to make it easier for them. Like, for example, if someone wrote in the chat here and said, hey, Eddie, I've got an idea for a project, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, yes, great idea. Can you just raise an issue on the project and we'll continue the discussion? If that person is more involved in open source, they will raise it very differently, because someone who's new to open source, who doesn't really work in open source, will say, Eddie, following our discussion, here is the idea, or I think we should do this, or whatever it is. And when I look at that issue, when I get the notification, go look at the issue a day later or 2 days later, I've had so many discussions between then, so many issues appeared, so many notifications. I want to be looking at that going, I don't know what they're referring to. I've spoken to so many people since then. Whereas someone in open source will know that people are so busy and jumping around between different projects, they will copy and paste maybe the conversation from the YouTube chat or from Discord chat or wherever it is, and they will paste it into the issue and put it in quotes, greater than symbol, and I can show you some markdown later on if you want. And they'll quote it, and underneath then say, following our discussion, and above will be part of the discussion. And that will really help me. And that's why people sometimes ask and say, Eddie, I raised a pull request like a week ago, but you haven't reviewed it yet. And someone raised theirs today and you've reviewed it. And it's like, because I have between meetings, between client calls, between my own projects, between community projects, I might have 10, 15 minutes. If I can review a pull request really quickly and get it merged and done, then I'll do it. If someone else's pull request is enormous and I need to dig in deeper because they haven't put a description in a pull request, it's less likely to get merged quickly. So why am I talking about this and about open source practices? It's because when I'm hiring people, I'm actually looking how they communicate. Do they make it easier to work with a team? And again, that's how you can kind of demand more money. Demand's probably a hard word, but how you could ask for more money, or you could demand more money, right? If you've got 4 offers on the table, you can kind of say, hey, look, I want to work with you, but I've got 3 other offers that are paying a bit more. If you up your rate, your salary, or whatever it is, then I'll go for yours. And you have leverage, and that's what it's important about. And you need to do open source little and often. Like I said, not every day. Every day would be great, but it doesn't have to be every day. But every few days, try and keep things going. And you'll be a project maintainer without even realizing, because you probably have customized your GitHub profile where you create a repo with the same name as your username, and then straight away, automatically, you are a project maintainer because people could contribute to your project, could raise an issue, and so on. And you will learn different skills by being a project maintainer. So I highly recommend doing that. We've got some more questions coming in the chat. This is great. Suppose I'm a total beginner and I want to contribute on something. Is it okay to raise an issue and first get a mentor type something and learn with them and then contribute? Really awesome question. Loving these questions. Thank you very much. It is better to always raise an issue first because it starts the conversation. And that's really important because you don't want to work on the pull request and then not to get accepted. You still get the green squares, but it's a bit soul destroying to have that closed. So definitely raise the issue and put a description. Don't have a title in the issue that is like 5 lines long. It needs to be clear and concise. And in the description, you can add more information about what you want to do. Add links, add screenshots. Markdown is there. Use it to make it easier for the maintainer to get involved, other people in the community to understand what you want so they can get involved in the conversation. And so definitely raise the issue first. And then people might give you some ideas and say, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this? And they might want to help you on that because they really like the feature. Therefore, they'll do everything they can to help you. So definitely raise the issue first. Start the conversation. And the pull request is starting the conversation on your changes. If your pull request isn't quite ready yet, then you can raise it in draft mode to get feedback from the community and the maintainer sooner. And then you can work about make it clear that it's in draft. It makes it clear. But also do a task list in the pull request. So therefore, GitHub can show 2 tasks out of 5 are done. So people kind of know where it is. And that is, really, really important. Okay, I see the clock ticking. I better kind of move on to the next bit. But keep the questions coming in and we will have some time for more questions at the end as well if I miss any out. I talked about how it can help you find a job, right? We all need to work, we need to live, and we apply for internships, we apply for jobs, we apply for projects, whatever it is. But wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to do the interview that I mentioned before? You apply and then people say, love it, when can you start? I mean, that'd be pretty good. Or they might have a conversation with you, but it's not an interview. They're not trying to test you and already convinced by what you can do from your GitHub. Because on LinkedIn, you can write anything you want. You can write you're the CEO of GitHub. But on GitHub, you've got to actually do the work. And then let's take it even a step further. Say you've been going for 2-3 years. I mean, I've been doing open source for over 10 years. And when I started, there was no GitHub. So it was a lot harder to sign up for this server, get access over there and this server over here. And they were using SVN and CSV over there. And now at least it's all Git, all GitHub, makes it a lot easier. But wouldn't it be even better if people came to you? What about big companies, small companies? Doesn't really matter. But what happens if people come to you and say, love what you're doing. Do you want to join our project? Do you want to join our company? That would be great. Then now you can even ask for even more money. Say, look, I like what you're doing, but I'm already currently got a gig. But if you sweeten the deal, I'm sure we can work something out. And by putting yourself out there in open source, and don't wait for your project to be ready. Do put your project out there. Don't wait for it to be ready. Our projects are living, and by being living projects, they're never going to be perfect. And people want to come along with you on the journey as well. So hopefully that answers that question. Can you give any suggestions for beginner in open source? Yes, great question. Tip number 1, just get started in the conversation. And you may think, well, how do I find a project? So let me share my screen for a moment, and let's see if I can kind of show you how to find issues and how to find projects. Obviously, we've got our projects that we highly recommend joining. Obviously, we're a bit biased, but the other thing that you can do is look at issues. So this is GitHub. Doesn't matter what page you're on. Right at the top, you've got this issues link. So if I click on that, it opens in a new tab. It straight away lists the issues that I've created, assigned, and so on. But you can actually filter up here. So you can filter by different things. So I can filter by a label. I can filter by a label and a language if I want. You can see my history. So if I filter by a label, it's like good first issue. But then I might want to filter by Python or Node or JavaScript, TypeScript, whatever it is. You can filter further, and you can filter by multiple labels as well. And then you can go find the project. So if I said good first issue is a good way to get started. If I do language, I could do something like Python, for example. and then filter the results. Now I can find the Python project, and you can have a look and see what there is. And then, like I said, when you find a project, the next thing you want to do is probably look at the closed issues and the closed pull requests and see which ones didn't get merged. So, for example, these have all been merged. That's reassuring. If you can find any that are closed that didn't get merged, then you can just check that the project's inclusive. Another thing you can do is you can go to the Insights tab on any project, and then you can go to the community link down the left and have a look. Do they have a README? Do they have a code of conduct? Do they have a license? Are they thinking that they want contributions? Are they helping people? Don't look at the vanity metrics at the top, like the stars and the forks. Those are, at an initial, what's the word? Well, it looks more active, not so active, but that doesn't guarantee anything. You need to have a look at the insights and community, and you need to have a look at closed issues and closed pull requests. And that's really how you can get started. But you've definitely just got to get started. I guarantee you're not going to find your first project, you're not going to find the perfect project if you're not trying it and looking for it. So definitely just go have a look, have a play, and then you discover other people, you discover other projects, and eventually you find the one that's perfect for you. And by perfect, it could be the technology you want, it could be the speed or size that you want, right? Some people want projects that are going really, really fast. And I've seen projects that go so fast, someone does a pull request, and every few hours, it keeps getting conflict. They resolve the pull request, and a few hours later, it has another conflict because other things are getting merged in and things are changing all the time. It's a bit like quicksand. Whereas some people prefer other projects that maybe change kind of not so often, so therefore they don't have so many conflicts to resolve, and it's not changing kind of every few minutes. It's going at a slower pace. And as you get more experienced, then you'll kind of move maybe to faster paced projects. Maybe not. It's entirely up to you. But go get into it, and you'll see which ones kind of suit you. So I hope that helps. Should we focus on data structure or open source contributions? Another great question. Data structures. Whenever I interview people for any role, from junior to senior, I never ask for data structures. I just think that is pointless. When I was at university, I did electronic engineering, and I hated coding because we did data structures, because it wasn't practical. It's not something you do as, say, a web dev, unless you're going into data science or the real low level stuff. That is not something that you're going to do on a daily basis. So data structures, do get into them if they're in your area that you want to get into. If you want to get into like sorting algorithms or database, I don't know, Elasticsearch, like searching optimization, you might want to get into those. Do definitely understand the types, arrays, objects, your primitives, like integers, and see how different languages do it differently from Java or TypeScript and so forth. To see how they do it differently, definitely get into the types. But data structures, I believe, is going too far unless you absolutely need to. A lot of the libraries, frameworks, tools we use do a lot of that heavy lifting for us, so we can focus on the business logic that the project needs. So yes, that's what I highly recommend. Don't stressing. I would say get into open source, and open source will show you what areas you want to get into. You like. I've seen people who go, yeah, I want to be in data science, and they kind of go into open source, get involved in data science. Actually, go, you know what? I love web dev, or vice versa. And when they go into web dev, they go, oh, actually, I like front end. Or actually, I don't. I prefer back end. And so, just getting into it, you'll find kind of your rhythm and what you like and the people you meet, and you'll find out about more projects, ideas, and suggestions. Also, another question come in. How do you get motivated for contributing in open source if your PR gets rejected again and again? If your PR gets rejected again and again, then two things. Don't let it demotivate you, because you might be contributing to a project that doesn't want contribution. So do check the closed pull requests. Do check their contributing MD file and the Insights tab. But if you are contributing to the right project and the pull request keeps doesn't get merged or rejected, then usually the project maintainer will want to help. Well, they want your pull request to get merged. Just like me being up here, right? You want me to succeed. You don't want me to fail. When people submit pull requests to my projects, we want the pull request to get merged. We want the pull request to succeed. So only if it's completely way off. So I would say raise an issue first, start the discussion. The project maintainer might give you some guidance and say, you should do this and this for us to accept it. But then if you keep getting some still rejected, then maybe check or maybe ask and say, well, why is this rejected? Try and find out more. Could it be because your pull request is too huge? I know I've rejected some pull requests that were really good, but they had like 10 issues in them and they were like huge. And these pull requests should have been raised individually. I should have had 10 pull requests. Could it be because you've included some files that shouldn't be included? The amount of pull requests, the amount of people that do git add dot and add everything in their working directory. And I get DS store files. I get, I don't know, IntelliJ.idea folders added. I'm going to reject it. Or you could add another commit to that pull request and I won't reject it. I will say, look, to accept this, you need to remove these files and I'll squash the commits. The history's gone. But make it easier for the project maintainer. Don't add those files. Make sure your git ignore globally on your machine is set up correctly, because not all git ignores within the project include everything. Some projects like to keep git ignore specific to the project, right? If the project has a build directory, then it's going to ignore that. But it's not going to ignore someone on Windows has these files, someone on Linux has these files, someone on Mac has these files. Those specific, that's specific to your system and on all your projects, you should ignore them globally. So I wouldn't let it don't let it demotivate you. Just keep going and pushing forward. It will get easier. I guarantee you it get easier. I know some people think, I should try and raise a pull request, once a week. I just do pull requests as part of my work, as in, that's a really bad word because it's not work for me. I love what I do, right? I get paid to just do what I enjoy. This is brilliant. But if I'm reviewing someone's pull request or I'm using a library and I see documentation or a bug or a feature, I just raise a pull request for it. So I do pull requests just as part of my day-to-day. And that's what it needs to become for you. It needs to become second nature. Just like brushing your teeth. You don't think and worry about brushing your teeth. It should just be the same. But at the beginning, I know it's hard. So just get into open source in any shape or form that you can. Get involved. So hopefully that answers that question. Harshal, hopefully I pronounced that right. Thank you very much for the question. Daksh, I'm so bad at pronouncing people's names. I'm so sorry. I do apologize. Could you tell us more about multiple open source competitions apart from Google Summer of Code? And I think there was Hacktoberfest, which finishes today. Today is the last day of Hacktoberfest. So have you all got your 4 pull requests in so you can get your tree planted? I said tree planted, not t-shirt. You can get a t-shirt as well, but it'd be nice to get some trees planted too. So yes, today's the last day of Hacktoberfest. There's that one. The Sohini, who I mentioned before, who's in the chat, she was talking about earlier on in live stream that Alexa do competitions as well. So they give you free AWS credit. They give you swag. I think I'm wearing my Alexa socks, my GitHub t-shirt. There are lots of stuff, but don't do it for the swag. Do it to learn and to network with other people. Then the swag and the jobs will all come second without even thinking. Hey Praveen, how you doing? Yes, we were streaming with Sohini on Praveen's channel a couple of hours ago. Awesome to have you here, Praveen. Praveen will have lots of awesome questions and does lots of work in open source. So Praveen will give you some thoughts and feedback as well. I hope I want to pronounce his name right. Sayan, can you give some insights on the technologies and frameworks we should be aware of or get started with? Actually, no. And the reason for that is I know you get the React fans, no names mentioned, Praveen, who go, yeah, do React. Okay, Praveen doesn't say that. But just as an example, I know people get really hung up on what libraries and frameworks they should learn. Don't. A lot of them follow the same practices. When I did Java and Spring, then I learned Spring Boot. It could be taken over to for example, like Zen Framework and Symfony Framework and PHP. And now doing Angular with TypeScript. The Java skills that I learned with Spring Boot are kind of ported over. So I would say learn your first language, whatever it is, whatever you kind of relate to, whatever you like more. And if you do a harder language, more like Java or TypeScript, although I'm going to kind of keep that that's a bit more friendlier, then go into another language like Python or PHP or JavaScript is easier. Going the other way is a bit more difficult, going to a strict language, but learn whatever you kind of resonates with you, because then the second languages and third language are always easier, right? For loops are the same. All the conditions are the same. Yes, it might be different syntax, but the principles are the same. Like if you drive a car, you're driving, I don't know, a Mercedes, for example, and you have to drive a BMW tomorrow, you're not going to panic, right? It's going to have an indicator, it's going to have a brakes, it's going to have a steering wheel. indicator might be on the other side. It might feel slightly differently, but the principles are the same. And same with libraries and frameworks. So if you do a library like React, then it's easier to pick up. But then when you go to a framework like Angular, it's going to be harder. But going the other way, it's easier. So it depends. Like, see what resonates with you. See what's in your local area for job-wise. I know now with COVID, local area is kind of less important, which I love, which is great. You can work with people all around the world, and locations, you just need an internet connection. Location doesn't really matter, which I really, really love. And I love just to work with awesome people. So yeah, I'm not going to mention any libraries or frameworks that you should learn. I think you should just learn the language and learn some popular frameworks and libraries in that technology and in maybe your local area, or in the area you want to work, but not physically. I mean like fintech or whatever it is. See what they're using in that space. I want to contribute to some JavaScript libraries. Where to start? So there are so many out there. I would contribute to the ones you use. So for example, if you're using Moment.js, or you're using Vue, or I don't know, anything, Lodash, anything, then I would contribute to those ones, because you'll be familiar with them already. You'll be familiar with those projects. Not 100%, you won't know it 100%. Even projects that I've used for years, I don't know 100%. But you'll know where to look for documentation. You'll know who to ask, who to chat to. You'll know how to get started. And then if you see missing, like code coverage isn't very low, like, let's face it here, okay? My first pull request was a typo fix. And who are we kidding? My second and third and fourth and fifth were probably all typo fixes. And that's how you get started. And then you get into the kind of, the more valuable stuff. Improving documentation, in improving code coverage. That's a really good one. Like, improve code coverage. If you can run the test locally and they've got like, I don't know, 85% coverage, you get it to 86, 87, keep doing pull requests, like improving the code coverage. The project maintainers will love you. So when you want to do more coding orientated pull requests, they're going to help you because they know you're committed to their project. Cool. I'm glad that makes sense. Thanks for letting me know in the chat that I answered the question. Okay. Remember, there are no bad questions. There are only bad answers from me. So keep the questions coming in. And even if I've tried to answer the question, maybe I didn't quite give you the answer that you're looking for, maybe try and ask a question a different way, and I'll try and go again. Thanks, Praveen, for the support. Awesome. Check out their GitHub repos. Oh, yeah, we haven't got time. I'd love to go have a look at your GitHub profiles and see what repos you're working on, and maybe make some suggestions. That's a really good idea, Praveen, but I don't think we've got time. We're going for like 40 minutes. Hopefully the hosts don't mind me going for a few minutes longer. If they can ping me in the private chat and let me know, or in the YouTube chat, it's fine. Can you tell us some organizations where we can contribute, and also how to connect to them and get started? Well, obviously, you're welcome to join our organization. We have so many awesome people. I think we have over 200 people now on GitHub. And we want to help you get started. And we have some people who contribute once a month. We have some people who contribute once a day. We have some people who don't contribute pull requests. They just review pull requests. And there's so much value in that. They really, spot things that we don't spot. And I love that. That's adding value. So when those people need help, have a question, be it on our projects or someone else's projects, we're going to help them. We're going to help them because they've helped us. This whole give and take. So it's like, imagine like you have a neighbor next door, and I don't know, you're having trouble moving a box into your house. And the neighbor kind of looks at you and just kind of carries on walking and just goes into their house and forgets. When they need help, you're going to offer to help? No. But, if you see your neighbor struggling with their box and you help them move it in, then when you're struggling with your box, your neighbor's going to go, I want to go help them as well. So definitely go and add value to the projects and help people, and you will learn so much more. I've learned so much more by getting involved in the open source community. Like, it can really help you learn 2-3 times faster. Let's face it, there are no 10x developers, ninjas, rock stars, wizards. There aren't. That's all BS. And those are people who want to work by themselves, and that's fine, but they're unlikely to get a high paid job. That's how it was years ago. Now people want to work with people who collaborate and share their knowledge and learning, right? No matter who we've got here, who've got maybe more years experience than me, less experience than me, doesn't really matter. I can learn from all of you, and I'm sure I can share something and teach all of you something. And that's what having the right attitude's about. It's about learning from each other and sharing your skills. And by sharing, you'll learn so much more as well. Glad the answers are good and they're helping learning so much today. Don't forget, check out my YouTube channel. I do lots of videos on open source and live streams on getting people into open source. We even do live streams where we find some issues and pull requests that you all can do like on your computer while I'm on the live stream, and I'll go over to somebody else. If you have any questions, you can ask me, and we come back to you and we watch on GitHub, you raise that pull request or issue. Because remember, raising an issue is adding value to a project. You still get the green square. So it's still important. And the green square isn't important, but it's nice to have those green squares on your tile background. So organizers, I haven't had any messages, so I might keep going for a little bit longer if I haven't had anything back. That's true. We can learn faster in open source. I learned React in 10 overview. Yeah, definitely learn faster by working in open source and by putting your code out there. Already subscribed and watched multiple of your videos. Awesome. Thank you so much for your support. And don't forget, everyone, join our Discord so we can chat between live streams and videos. And the community is really helpful. If you have any questions, don't ping me privately because I probably won't get around to it. I get hundreds, if not thousands of messages per day. Ask publicly in Discord and someone else can help you. And if I do get a chance to answer it, which I do really try and do, but you'll get somebody else who answers it too. So you get multiple points of view. You don't just want one point of view. That's why I recommend everyone, if you want a mentor, don't ask someone. Everyone you speak to, everyone you meet, all of you are my mentors. You can learn something from everybody. And I think that's really important. And again, that's how I've learned so much faster, is by getting 5 or 6 different points of view. And I see with the one that I think suits best. And that's definitely the best way to do it. What sort of organization you're talking about? The organization I'm talking about is just Eddy Jaoude community. I'll put it in the chat. Eddy Jaoude community, that is did I have a space in it? I didn't mean to have a space. I don't know if I can share the link. Let me see if I can share the link. I'm not sure if I can share the link in the chat. I think YouTube might block it. Let's see. Yeah, it got removed. So I'll tell you what, I will just go github.com. GitHub.com and then just put that at the end. So rather than that's the organization name. And so yeah, come join, go to the support repo, raise an issue, get your green square for today. And when you raise the issue, there are some options. And one of the options is get invitation to the organization. Raise an issue with that type, and it will put a label on it. It'll notify me and some of the other moderators, and we'll get you an invitation to our GitHub organization. So that would be great. Okay, this has been fun. I've had really good fun today. I hope you've all had fun. I hope you've learned something, and I hope it's inspired you all to get into open source. Remember, it can really accelerate your career. And my biggest regret is not starting in open source sooner. So yes, I've been doing it over 15 years in full stack, but I've only been doing open source for just over 10. I wish I started sooner because it has really changed my world. And yeah, it's just been awesome. As a GitHub star, I get to go to meetings with the GitHub team, meet other stars around the world, and it's great to see the awesome work that other people are doing. But I wish I started sooner so I could do even more. Really, really important. We'll add in the description. Okay, cool. Yes. And all my, as you can see in the stream, at Eddy Jaoude, that's me on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, everything's Eddy Jaoude. So you can find me everywhere, whatever you use. But if we have a few more minutes, I don't see the organizers kicking me off just yet. If we have a few more minutes, then if anyone has any other questions, then let me know. I'd love to review some of your GitHub profiles. Maybe I'll do a live stream on that tomorrow or something, or soon, and I can have a look at your GitHub profiles. We come and review some of your projects and just see how you can get more collaborators and more people contributing to your projects as well. And I always learn something new. We were reviewing a project last week on a live stream, and I can't remember what it was called, and I'll have to find out. And what they had done in their README was like mind-blowing, because it was just so catchy that I always remember that project. Yes, I can't think of the name right now, but I know where to look for it. And I remember that specific project because, oh yes, it was why they named the project a certain way. It was called something like Red Badger or something. I don't know, something like that. And there was a reason why they gave it that name, and they explained the story behind it. And I love that. It's so unique. And so there's different things you can do in your README. Obviously, the quick start, the requirements of stuff you need installed. But then you can make it more personal afterwards, and I think that's really, really awesome. I've got some awesome videos coming out soon. So if you want to heads up on what's coming out, I've got GitHub Labs coming out. So we'll probably just do some GitHub actions on that. Dot files, why you should use dot files. So GitHub Labs allows you to run through tutorials on GitHub. And as you do things on GitHub, the bot like comments on your issue, your progress, whatever you're doing, saying, well done, now move on to the next step. It gives you instructions for the next step. I love GitHub Labs. I'm thinking of making my own lab. And we could do that on a live stream, make it together. That'd be awesome. And I'll do dot files, which allows you to configure your local development environment or code spaces or another laptop with all the SSH config, ZSH config, Git config, and just syncs it all up. And even your VS Code plugins just has them all synced up from a GitHub repo, which is just awesome. What else do I have? I'm just looking at my paper notes. Not very high tech, I know. I'm in temporary office at the moment, so that's why. I will do some open source reviews. So if you want me to review your project on our support repo in our organization, raise an issue and give it the label, the type open source review. It could be your portfolio, but it must be open source, and include your GitHub link. And we'll go have a look through your projects, give you a shout out on my YouTube channel as well. That'd be great. And what else have we got? How to customize your GitHub profile, right? You want to stand out. So create a repo on your GitHub account with the same name as your username, and then customize it. And don't worry about getting it perfect. Just start your that repo, and it will start. I think GitHub pre-fill it with your name, and then you can add things more and more. Other people can contribute to it and add to it more and more as well. So awesome to get all the thanks in the chat. I love that. Thank you all so much. This is great. I love the support. See, just providing feedback in the chat gives me support, gives me energy and motivation to do more. So, and definitely having this conversation earlier on today. And one last kind of tip: have your name on YouTube and your name on GitHub, and your name on Discord, all the same. Because the names here that I see, the people getting involved in the conversation by asking questions, by saying thank you, I'm more likely to remember those names. And then when I see it in Discord, and I see you write in the chat or on GitHub, if I see and recognize the name, I want to think, oh, that person was adding value. You know what? I want to go prioritize their work more. Whereas if it's just some random person, unfortunately, they become lower down because I want our community to have priority. So I feel really bad when people say, oh, hey, Eddie, by the way, this is my other name from another platform when we were talking. I'm thinking, I struggle with people's names anyway. Don't make it harder for me by having multiple names. It will really help your personal brand. So if people want to search for you to find you on LinkedIn, to send you a message or whatever it is, so they can find you. So I highly recommend having this consistent name across those platforms so people can find you. Make it easier for these companies to find you. And when they find you, make it easier for them to show them what your niche is. Do you work on Alexa? Do you work on front end, back end, full stack? Whatever it is, just make it easier so they can see that you're the right person to offer a job to, project, whatever that is. Okay, I saw the organizers jump up on the screen for a split second. So
yeah. So I think that is the time we have. But I would like to thank you for joining us at such a short notice. I know it was really kind of you to join us for this session. And I'm seeing all these thank you. And so on behalf of Geeks for Geeks community, I would like to thank you for taking some time out for us.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so if there are any questions, so feel free to put them in the chat. We have some time. We can take them up. Sure. So I think we should conclude this session with this. So thank you again, Eddie, for joining us.
Thank you very much. And I'll see you all soon.
Yes, thank you. So we have another guest waiting for you for this webinar session. We have Shiva, who will be joining us and who will be telling us about GSOC. He's the project manager at Medway and winner of Hack CBS 2019. And second runner-up at Incubate Hackathon by Microsoft. And I am really excited to welcome you. So Shiva, So while he joins us, I would like to continue with this introduction. He is selected as the Google Code Inventor at TensorFlow, and he would be guiding us on how we can start our preparation for Google Summer of Code 2021. And I think we're having some issues, and he will join us soon. I think he's having some issues. So before we go into that, let's take a look at the website. We know we had been working as part of this Geeks for Geeks community, and our goal was to create a website and application. So before we go with Shive's session, I think we should have a look at the website screenshots that we have made so far. So I'll be sharing my screen. So yeah, we have all gathered here for Game-of-Source, and here are some of the screenshots of the website. This is the main page. We open up to the R mission page, and we are working. We have created these screenshots to display of what we have done in the past 10 days. We had over 70 plus issues and students from 145 plus universities contribute, and all these were part of Geeks for Geeks student chapter. So yeah, that is the contact page we have made for the website. Okay, so I think Shiva is ready to join us. So I think he's having some issues with connection. So yeah, hi Shiva, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too, and we are really excited to have you. So I think I'll hand over the control to you for this session.
Yeah, absolutely. One second. I'll just bring up my slides. Just a second.
Yeah, sure.
And again, like a very big thank you to the team for inviting me over. And I'm really excited to be sharing some thoughts on open source. And yeah, so give me just one second. I'll pull up the slides.
Yeah, and we are
And let me
also
know.
really very excited to have you. So if
Okay.
there are any questions, you can put them in the chat, and we can take them up in the Steam. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
Great. So this session, and again, just to be very quick in terms of the introduction, the session will be sort of guiding you towards the basics of open source and how to get started with the introduction to contributing to open source, and also to Google Summer of Code, how to basically prepare for such programs, such open source programs like Google Summer of Code, and a lot of other open source programs which you might not be aware of. I'll be sort of enlightening you on that, and showing a very quick demo on the basic steps that are required to contribute to any open source project or a program, whether it's Google Summer of Code or it's the Major League Hacking Fellowship, right? So let's get started. I'm more than excited to be taking up the session, and without wasting any time, we can start. So again, as we are talking about open source, a very quick introduction about myself. I am Shivai. I'm a Google Summer of Code mentor with the Jenkins Foundation and the CNCF Foundation. I've previously mentored in Google Codin as a mentor with the TensorFlow, and I'm currently a Major League Hacking Fellow, which is an open source alternative program by Major League Hacking. and I'm also Linux Open Source Summit recipient, and I've been a speaker at a few international conferences like the First Asia Tech Summit and the Voice International. And yeah, so that's about me, and we can get started with the intro. So over the past few days, you must have heard about open source. So I won't be sort of diving deep into the aspects of open source, and I'll sort of just quickly guide through that number of slides. This just sort of a precursor to what I'm going to be speaking about today, and I'm going to be talking mostly about how to contribute rather than why contribute, because again, you must have already gone through it. And just in case, for someone who is completely new to open source, I'll be taking some amount of time in talking about open source. So why do we call open source as open source, right? That is probably the biggest question. So the first and the most important thing is that the open, as it says, is open for collaboration and open for developing. So open is not only, and so when it comes to open source, open is basically what you can think of all the different ways in which open could actually mean, whether it's for people coming in from all walks of life, from any country, coming in contributing to a particular project. And source means that the entire source code that you see, or the source itself, is completely visible to everyone around you, and it can be accessed and it can be used by anyone any number of times whenever possible. So that is the real essence of open source. But open source is not just limited to the software development or programming in general. Open source is sort of a philosophy that is attributed to the distribution and access to any product, and it can be programming, it could be a scientific research that has been conducted. So open source is not just limited to open source development as we know of. And probably one of the biggest differences between open source and closed source software is that open source is having a much wider reach in terms of the developer community, because people are contributing to it all over the world across different time zones. And that is why it also makes it much more secure, because more number of people are finding out bugs and also helping and actually resolving those bugs. Just take a consideration that, let's say there is a firm like Microsoft who is working on the Microsoft Excel, right? So there might be a developer team of 50 people as compared to an open source project like Linux, or let's say Ubuntu, which is having more than 100,000 users and developers contributing to it on a day-to-day basis. So you get to be part of a global community. It's much more secure, as I already said, and you can view and modify the open source code of such kind of software at any point of time according to your own need. And we talked about open source, but what does free and open source community mean? So open source can actually be paid as well. There are a few softwares which are paid, right? But their source code is open, but there is a licensing fee to actually use them. But what we need to embrace is free and open source software. And what does this free stand for? It's not just free of cost, but it is also the freedom to actually use the code base or the project at any point of time, freedom to modify it, and freedom to distribute it under your own terms by, let's say, if you have made a few modifications. So that is where the freedom of or this free, basically this keyword that we use in FOSS, the keyword free really comes into the picture. And that is what something that we should embrace and we should advocate. And if you have not heard earlier about Linus Torvalds, who is the creator of the Linux kernel and Git, he says that in real open source, you have the control you have the right to control your own destiny. And what does that mean? Is that with open source, you get complete freedom on how you want to pursue or how you want to build your product, and you have complete ownership onto that project, right? And again, like, there are a few criteria for open source, as I've already covered, that it should be free, it should be open in terms of access, it can be modified by anyone, it can be used by any time, at any point, and anywhere. Like, there are no disconditions in terms of the person using it or the geography, right? And it can be used and again. So it's not that you just have a one-time usage that is available. And why one should embrace open source? Again, as I already said, that the quality and the reliability and the security is much higher as compared to closed source software, because There are so many number of developers that there are constant iterations going over from day-to-day perspective. And in terms of the customizability, you get much more customizability options because you can make those on your own. There are multiple other people who are making those customizations. You can work or you can use their customized version of the software, and it can be run anywhere. And the biggest is the community, because you're part of this community of a worldwide community of hundreds and thousands of developers working towards that project. So you are interacting with people at a global level, and you can interact and collaborate with them at any point of time. And these are very minuscule example of a few softwares like Linux operating system, MySQL database, Java programming language, Ubuntu, Mozilla Firefox. Again, like, these are some of the very popular ones, but the number of open source softwares itself is growing dynamically over the years. So something like Microsoft itself, which said during the 1990s that open source cannot exist, today has bought GitHub, which is the largest open source project platform. So that is what you can see is how the open source itself has shaped the world, and how incredibly fast it is actually growing in terms of the support base and in terms of the developers adapting themselves to open source. So that is the beauty and that is the power of open source. And now one of the biggest examples that I want to take over is the open source development model. So let's consider most of the companies that usually have, like, what is kind of architecture that they follow in terms of the people working over there. So the general hierarchy is a very vertical hierarchy. So you will have your group CEOs, you will be having your managing directors, over then you'll be having your project managers, senior software developers, junior software developers, entry level software developers. So it's a very very vertical hierarchy. And let's say if you want to approach someone, generally the trend is that you will be approaching someone above you, and you'll generally not have a lot of say when it comes to important product decisions. Whatever tasks you're assigned, you will be working on those. But the open source development model is a very flat level model. So what does that mean? What does this flat level model mean? Is that there are a bunch of different contributors also / volunteers who are contributing to the code base, but everyone has equal access to opportunities when it comes to discussing the project ideas, working on the code base. Generally, you might just have one or two people who might be project maintainers or project leads who have been working on the project for quite some time, and they have much more in-depth knowledge about the code base. But again, you will find much more opportunity to actually express your thoughts, express your code, and reach out to anyone at any point of time. And that is the benefit of contributing to any open source project. And why contributing is important, again, one of the biggest reasons that I've not covered so far is the real world software development experience. So what does that mean? So let's say you get an internship, you start working on that internship. Let's say you work at Microsoft. So there are a certain number of developer tools that you will be using that are actually specifically catered towards production grade. So let's say if you're working on your own project locally on your system, you might be using things like GitHub, VS Code, but you might not be getting exposure to industry level tools that are used directly in big companies when they are pushing out production grade code for 100,000 users. So when it comes to such kind of tools, a lot of different open source projects are using such tools to export or ship their products and ship their code. So, and also not just this, like not just the developer tools, but also the development experience, like the software development practices, the best practices. For example, a software development model like the waterfall model, agile based model, those which are used in open source in real world companies, in MNCs, those are also somewhat followed in open source development as well. So you get the exposure right from your home, comfort of your home, to actually contribute to such projects and learn about such tools and learn about these developer tools and developer best practices. Then you get community bonding that I've already said, and satisfaction to actually contribute to such large code bases by even making some small contributions. And now what we wanted to come to this topic, I just wanted to give a very short turnaround of those 10 minutes in talking about the open source. Now, the first question is that we've answered is, what is open source? What does FOSS mean? Now, the biggest question is, right before we jump on to the nuances on contributing to programs like Google Summer of Code, is how you can actually get started with open source development itself. So stepping right into this free and open source development world is the next topic that we are going to be covering. Now, just to keep very clear, there are a certain number of prerequisites that you require. So the first one is Git. Git is essentially a version control system. So what does that mean? It's a way of working with your projects, working with files, and shipping your files from one place to another, and looking at how and when you contributed to any file, how others are contributing to your file. So what does that mean? By what we mean by distributed is that more number of people can contribute to a single project using Git, and this way it is easy to manage who is working on what changes were made at what point of time. So Git is a command line tool, or it's using actually the command line to actually work as a version control system. Now, we won't be diving too deep into the working of Git, but in case you want to get started with Git, you can go to this tutorial link on guides.github.com/introduction/Git handbook. This shows a basic list of different Git commands that you can use. As I've already said, that Git is on a command line tool. So there are a bunch of different command line commands that you use with Git to work on any project that you'll be using Git with. So again, I'll not be diving too deep into that. I'll be giving a few like a short demo on how Git works, and a few basic commands that can help you get started with contributing to open source. But apart from Git, you also do require to know at least one programming language. Now, it can be any programming language like C++, Java, JavaScript, Python. There is no specific requirement as such, because you have open source projects in all of the different languages. And you should at least have like a basic knowledge or like a medium level knowledge of the tech stack that you're using in that programming language. So we have a programming language like JavaScript. The tech stack could be the MERN stack, which uses React, Node.js, or it could be Django and in Python, right? So at least having some amount of knowledge on the tech stack is required so that you can get started. So these are a few prerequisites that you might want to look at before you start contributing to open source. And again, the biggest question is how to get started, right? The answer is that you don't have to wait for someone to tell you right now. You have to start itself. And what I'm going to tell you is, it's going to be super easy to get started by contributing to open source, because you can create your own project and make it public, and that is an open source contribution itself. Let's say you help your friends in actually solving a few of their issues that they might be having. Those are themselves open source projects, because contributions to projects. Because a lot of time students ask me, when we look at certain code bases that are having hundreds and thousands of lines of code, obviously it's not expected that you will be knowing or how to get started with contributing to, let's say, a open source project by Google. To basically build upon your skills on GitHub, Git, or your programming languages, you can always get started by contributing yourself to your own project or to your own repository. And that way you gain confidence, you help your friends, you get confidence in how to get started with contributing to others' repositories, and that way you can move on to some bigger projects and to such kind of open source programs like the Google Summer of Code, which I'll be talking about in a short while, right? So that should give you some insight on how you should have to get started. Now, before I sort of dive deep into this part, I would like to give you a short demo on what exactly is GitHub, how you can create your first ever contributions to GitHub, and in case anyone has any questions thus far, I would also love to take them as part of the session. So would love to first take up any questions that you might be having. So I'll quickly move down and look at if there are any other questions. Okay, so most of the questions are about what are the new rules in 2021. Again, I'll be quickly moving on to that part as well, but let me just give a very short demo on how you can get started with open source development, because regardless of the changes in the rules that have been made in Google Summer of Code in the year of the 2021, the way of actually contributing to such programs remains the same. So I'll quickly just go over how you can get started with contributing. So again, for those people who are completely new, go today and make an account on Google, on GitHub. GitHub is the one of the most powerful tools if you want to express or if you want to showcase your open source projects. So once you go to github.com, you simply just have to go to your profile and click on this plus button and create a new repository. And once you create your new repository, you can give it a name. And let's say I give it a name of GeeksforGeeks workshop. So I'll just keep it GeeksforGeeks workshop. Now, as you see, it gives you the option to actually add a description. It actually gives you the permission to either go for a public repository or a private. In case you're working on some kind of a personal project, you can always keep it private, but public will mean that it is open sourced. And once you click on public, you can add a few files. So README file is basically your wiki for your project. What means is that, let's say, in case you want to add things about what your project does, how people can get started or contributing to your project, how they can install the project locally, or some other facts about your project. So for now, we can create the repository. We can get started by creating a very quick README. And in the README, we can say a short workshop, right, on open source, right? And I'll quickly just give a demo on what exactly we ought to do. So let's say this is the file that we are creating. It means Markdown file means that it basically, a Markdown is a style of writing documentation which follows bullet points, and it gives a lot of flexibility when it comes to creating a very powerful documentation. So Markdown is a way of styling your documentation, right? So what you see over here is committing a new file. So what does committing a new file mean is that when you make any changes to a project, so let's say you are working on a Word document, you want to save it, right? So when you save that project, it gives you the option of actually saving it to a location and giving it a name. So similarly, how you save a project, basically commit means that you have created some changes to a file, or you have created some changes to a bunch of different files, and now you want to save those changes. So that is what something that the commit also means, that you have made a few changes and now you are committing to it, that those changes will now be merged into your project. So you can give it a short description over here. Always try to give very brief and crisp description. Don't give a very irrelevant condition, description. So over here, as like you can see, it sort of gives you pre-filled value, but you can give something like, let's say created docs, created readme, so something like this, right? So this should give an idea. And in case you want to give some more detail about the commit that you have made, you can give a more extended commit. And once you commit this file, this will make the changes into your project. So you'll see that now I've created a README. You can give description. Now, just to give a sort of a brief demo on what exactly are issues. So issues in your project. So I'll quickly just show one of the issues in the Jenkins. Let me see if there are any open issues. Yeah. Let me check. So there are no issues over here. Just 1 second. We can quickly just go over to one of the projects where I'll show you what exactly are issues. So let's say I'm looking at this project called Docker Agent. So what does issue mean? So basically, issues are usually, these are specific taglines or like specific topics that people can actually take over and can contribute. So what does that mean is that, let's say in case I'm working on this project, right? And I create an issue that I want other people to come in and add, let's say, new files. So let's say I create an issue by the name of addition of C++ files or C++ programs. I want people to contribute by adding C++ programs. So what I'm saying is that this is an open issue that I'm creating. I want other people to come in and add C++ programs to my project. So what will happen is, like, let's say if someone is willing to contribute, they can come to the issues tab and they can look at the list of open issues that are there. Now, some of the issues are feature requests. So what does that mean is that in case we are working on an open source project, you want to add certain new features, you can come in and look at this issue and start working on it. And let's say there are a few other issues that might be actually bugs. So in case there are some bugs, you can actually find by going into the label and looking at if there are any issues that are marked as bugs. So those are bugs within the project, and the open source maintainers or these repositories are inviting over users or open source contributors to come and look at that particular bug that might be there, and you can actually come in and contribute by resolving that bug. So issues is the place where you will find a list of open things that are going on, and you can come and contribute to these issues. Now, pull requests. So again, what I've shown you over here is that I can openly contribute to whatever I want. So let's say I go back to my README file and I make a few changes. So let's say I add workshop conducted on 31st October, right? So what I can do is that I can easily contribute to my own project and there's no issue, right? But let's say if you want to contribute directly to this Docker agent project, so the thing is that you cannot directly contribute to it because you don't have the ownership on this project. So that is where pull request comes into the picture. Pull request means that you create a local copy of a project, and in case you make some changes to that project, those will actually remain locally within yourself. Direct correlation on what does that mean is that let's say you're having you're having a file in your local disk C, and you create a copy of that folder and that file in your local disk D, and whatever changes that you make in your local disk D, which is the copied version, those will not get directly reflected in your local disk C. And in case you want those to get updated, you will have to copy over the changes that you made in the local disk D and bring them over to the local disk C. Similarly, for example, since I cannot directly contribute to this project, what you have to do is create a fork. Now, once you create a fork means that we are basically making a local copy of that particular project, right? And once I create the fork, or once I create that local copy, I would be able to make certain changes within this project. As you can see, now it gives me the option of actually making changes. So let's say I look at one of the files, and although like the contributions that you make should be meaningful, but just for the application or just for the limitation for this project itself, I can quickly go over to one of my friend's projects. I hope he doesn't mind, just to showcase to you that we can make changes and then we can request those changes. So let's say I want to make changes to this particular repository. So let's say I create this fork. I quickly go and I create a fork, and I make a local copy of this file, right? And now quickly moving on to making a short change. So as you can see, I've created this fork, and now I am the owner of this repository. That is a copied folder, right? A copied repository. So let's say I create a small change into this, like let's say screenshots to be added over here, and look, so something like for open issues, visit the issues tab. something like this. So just a very small change, and I can commit my changes to locally to my project. But let's say now I want to request these changes that I have made to be actually made in this user's repository as well. Because if you go and if I show you these changes that I made are there reflected in my repository, but these are not reflected in my friend's repository. So in case I want to actually make those changes appear in my friend's repository as well, you have to create a pull request. So once I create a pull request, what happens is that I request the other user or that other project to actually merge my changes. And over here, you have to give a very important description that what changes have you made. So let's say I mentioned added issue contributing guide. So let's say because I had added that, so you have to give very very good descriptions where you're explaining about your pull request that you create. So let's say I create a pull request. So what does that mean is that now the other user will have this this decision to make whether they want to make that pull request merge. So basically there's a terminology called merging pull request. So what will that happen? What will happen is, let's say my friend merges my pull request. That changes that you see in my repository that I made, those will come and those will be visible in this repository as well. So that should give you an idea. So let's say I make some changes, I find a few of the issues, I go through the issues in this Jenkins Docker agent. So let's say there was a particular bug that I could contribute to. I go there, I contribute to it, and I make changes. I create a pull request, and now it's up to the Jenkins Docker agent repository to whether they want to merge them or not. So similarly, in case you want to get started with your own project, you can create an open source project yourself, and that way you can get started by contributing, and you can actually create open issues and help out your friends and understanding how you to respond to issues, how to create pull requests, how to follow best practices. Again, I'll not be going too deep into that part, but this should give you like a brief idea on how to get started. Now, as I said, there are a few other tips to go through. As I've already talked about issues, I've asked about releases. So there's something called license as well. So license is nothing but basically like a certificate of authority that tells, okay, this project was created by this and so user, and you should give them proper credit in case you are copying over their work or you're making changes. So some open source projects use license as well. And now I would just like to take some questions in case there are any with regards to this part. Again, I think we are good to go. Now coming on to the part that everyone was waiting for, that is open source development in organizations and in programs like Google Summer of Code. Again, I'll be quickly touching upon the changes that have been made in Google Summer of Code 2021. But before that, we get started with the process that is going to be the same whether you are whether it was for GSOC 2020 or GSOC 2021. So the first thing is finding an appropriate organization for yourself, and then start interacting in that organization, in the community of that organization, and start programming in the organization projects. Now, there are two ways to actually start selection of the organization that you want to work for. And the two approaches are the top-down and the bottom-up. For the top-down approach, what you do is that you have a list of different skill sets that you learn. And let's say you're good in JavaScript, you're good in Python. Then you start looking out for those organizations that are having these skills, or they're utilizing these technologies within their projects. So let's say I take an example. We can go to the list of organizations in Google Summer of Code, just as a precursor on actually showing you how to do that. Google Summer of Code. We can quickly go through and just give me one second. So this is the organization archive for the year of 2020. So these have all the different organizations that took part in Google Summer of Code 2020. So let's say I want to look out for specific projects that specific organizations that are using JavaScript. So I type over here JavaScript, and you can actually see some of the projects that are using JavaScript. Or let's say you have this filter by category. So let's say I want to specifically look out for organizations that are using JavaScript or web development. And in case you want to go, you can go through each of these different organizations and actually look at what kind of technologies that are using. For example, the Django Software Foundation is using Python and Django. And let's say we have something like Mozilla. You must have heard about Mozilla Firefox. So this uses JavaScript, HTML, web development, Python. So this way, you can search for specific organizations based on your skill set. And the other way is the bottom up, where you first search for the organization. So let's say you're deeply you're deeply you love, like, let's say Fausacia. So you go to that organization, you love the community over there, and you want to get started by contributing to those projects. So you learn the skills, or you learn the specific languages that are used. So let's say I go to Fausacia, I go to their GitHub. So that is github.com Fausacia. So you can actually look at the list of skills or list of technologies that are being used by going over and seeing, okay, the top languages that are being used over here are JavaScript, HTML, Python, and you can actually go and see all the different languages as well, apart from the top ones. So they are having some projects in C++. So if I click on C++, you can see some of the projects that they have made on C++. Right. So this should give you an example on the way the bottom up approach. But in both of the cases, you need to learn Git and at least have knowledge on some tech stack, regardless of the way you approach these. And now one of the questions is how many organizations that you can choose. So that really depends upon yourself. So again, if you're comfortable working with 3 different organizations, you can choose 3. In case you want to stick to one, you can stick to one. And let's say you select one organization, you select 2 organizations, what you have to do after you select an organization. So the 3 pillars are what you have to do in any kind of a project. And this is true for any kind of an open source program that you want to work for, whether it's Google Summer of Code, whether it's the Linux open source Linux community bridge program, or Alibaba Summer of Code. For that matter, you have to first go and introduce yourself. So usually these organizations will be having either a mailing list, they might be having a Slack or a GitHub channel. You go over there, you introduce yourself, you look out for the appropriate projects. You sort of give your interest. You tell them that you're interested in working in this particular project. You go and start contributing to those projects. You can always get mentorship or assistance in actually getting started with those projects, because a lot of times it is expected that someone who is joining in for the first time will not understand the code base as it is. So there are a lot of different mentors. There are community members who are very welcoming and will sort of help you get started with contributing. Then finally, you look out for open issues as I've already demoed to you, and you start fixing them. A lot of the issues will be having the tag bug or feature requests, which you can get started with, and a lot of them will be also having beginner friendly. So those are specifically for those people who are getting started with those organizations. And again, filtering the matchups, something that you can have a look, how you want to look out for the perfect project that you want to work on. And this is the developer cycle that you will be seeing in any kind of an open source project that you work. You'll find some existing issues, you will fix them, you will create a pull request, and you'll wait for them to actually get changes. So either your pull request will get merged to the project, or you might be asked to make a few changes to your code. Then that developer cycle continues as it is. And like, let's say, obviously when you join an organization, you will find there are a certain number of people who are very good at what they're doing. So if you have some doubts, just shave them off, because You don't need to be a pro. Even in case you are not able to contribute directly, you can still take a lot of time and get started by understanding the code base, because you don't need to know the entire code base to contribute. Because let's say we had a code base of WhatsApp. Let's say it was open source, and you want to contribute to a issue that just is related to the UI of the WhatsApp, right? There's a WhatsApp UI bug. You don't need to really understand the entire functioning. What you have to do is go to a very specific file, understand that code, understand how the logic is going ahead, and make changes to that. And as you grow experience with the project, the more and more with time, you will gradually understand the entire code base. And the best way to actually understand the code base is, first, always go to a project and look at the README and download the project. Use the project yourself, because let's say if you didn't know how to how WhatsApp actually works, you cannot actually go and contribute to the code base for WhatsApp. So always go first, run the project, understand how it's actually functioning, and then contribute. And you don't need to be from a CS background to come and contribute. In case you are good enough with code, you can come from any other branch of engineering or other fields, and you can come and contribute. And now coming on to what we were talking about, a few of the open source projects or open source programs. Now, a few of them, as you already know, are Google Summer of Code, then Major League Hacking Fellowship, Code Heat, Rails Girls Summer of Code, which is for girls, Outreach program, which is for specifically for the students belonging from the non or the underrepresented groups in technology. And there are a bunch of other programs as well. Right now, we'll be coming on to what everyone was asking for. That was the new rules in Google Summer of Code. So quickly going over, so again, this sort of a deep touchdown of Google Summer of Code 2020, or what we had before. So Google Summer of Code, as I already said, is an open source program that used to be earlier for a period of 4 months, starting from the month of May, June, July, August, where the first month used to be sort of a community bonding period. Now, first, let's first get started with what exactly is Google Summer of Code. So Google, as an organization, they wanted to embrace open source. So they invited over open source organizations from around the globe. These open source organizations, they apply to actually be a part of the Google Summer of Code program. So usually they apply at the starting of January. They submit a few of their projects that they want to apply for, and Google then sort of filters out some of the organizations, and they get part of the Google Summer of Code program. Now, this is done in the month of January, and during the end of February or during the starting of March, these organizations are actually announced, and their projects are also announced. So these are the projects that the students will be working on. Now, let's say there are 200 organizations. Each organization will be having a number of different projects. It can range from one project to all the way to 10 or 11 projects, depending on the size of the organization and how many number of projects they are applying for. And now, once the the organizations are announced, their projects are announced, then there's a window where the organization is now open for the students to actually apply for their proposals. So basically, you have to create a proposal for the project that you're applying for. The proposal should have things like why you want to contribute to the project, some basic steps, some system diagrams to actually showcase that yes, you have a general understanding of the project and what you will be working on a week-to-week basis during the entire project cycle, so that the company or the organization itself is confident enough. And this is the time where you actually connect with the mentors and with the organization and discuss with them regarding your proposal, describing your your willingness to actually contribute to that particular project, right? So this is the time where you are sort of iterating over your proposal and you submit the proposal. And during the end of March or during the first week of April, those proposals are now submitted, and the organizations go over the proposals and they select a few of them, which are announced during the month of May. During the month of May, once the projects and their respective students are announced, you have what we call as the community bonding period. And over here, the organizations get introduced to the student gets introduced to the organization, to all the different projects, how the organization works, to the project itself. And starting from June, you have 3 distinct periods where you're contributing to the code itself, which you had agreed upon according to your timeline. There are 2 different phases. So after you complete your first phase, you're evaluated whether your progress is good enough. In case it's good, you receive a stipend and you continue. This goes on till the last week of August, and that is where you end your official Google Summer of Code program. Now, let's first understand why the Google Summer of Code program was made. The main focus was to invite developers into actually contributing to open source. It is not an internship program. It is more as a means to encourage students to get started with open source programs. And it is not a Google internship. It is just a program supported by Google, where you are contributing to one of the partner organizations which are taking part in the Google Summer of Code program. Now, the trend that I talked about was true till the Google Summer of Code 2020. Now, there were a bunch of different changes that were made and that were announced during the Google Summer of Code Mentor Summit that happened earlier in this month. And a few of the changes are completely new. And now, and again, the reasoning that Google wanted to give was pertaining to the work to this virtual environment that we have, and also for getting more and more number of students and more number of people into the Google Summer of Code program. A bunch of different changes were actually announced to the program itself. So the biggest the biggest sort of, now first we could just go over the timeline before we go into the actual changes. So I already said that the timeline for the organizations, they usually begin in January. So this time it will be on January 30. And the organizations which they want to apply, they can apply till February 2020, where they also give their projects that they want to apply for. Starting from March 10, that is where the students will start applying for their proposals. They can connect with these organizations between February 20 and March 10 to understand the projects and understand, give their willingness. And the application period will be from March 2029 to April 13, where they have to submit their proposals, and the review will be done till May 17, when the selected proposals will be announced. And then you will be having the community bonding period from May 17 to June 7 of 2021, where the students and the organization get to know about each other. Then you have your coding period from June 7 into August 16, divided into those distinct phases that I've already said. And there will be 2 evaluations. One is the evaluation done as a midpoint on between July 12 and July, you have submitted your project. So one of the biggest changes coming into the Google Summer of Code 2021 is that the number of evaluations have been reduced to 1 in the midpoint. Earlier, we used to have 2 evaluations happening. One was at the end of June, and one was at the end of July, since it was a 3-month or a 12-week program. So the total number of weeks now has reduced, and so has the stipend. But this is more to do with including, having more number of projects and having more number of contributors coming in on board. So you will be having 1 midpoint evaluation between July, and then you will having 1 final evaluation after you submit your code in the month of August. And some of the final evaluations will be done, and the results will be announced on August 31st. Now, basically, Google Summer of Code has released a few of the guidelines, or a few of the changes that have been made, and you can actually go over here and look at those. Now, the biggest one, as I've already said, is the duration of the program and the stipend, right? So the stipend has been halved, but again, keeping aside the stipend and the duration, one of the biggest other changes is that now students who are not just in universities but have also graduated and are part of any other coding bootcamp, even they can actually come in and apply for the Google Summer of Code program. It is now not just limited. Earlier, it was for those students who are having some kind of a college program, whether they are in their undergrad degree, whether they are in their postgrad degree, you had to be enrolled in an academic program. And now, in case you are also part of a boot camp, even then you can come in and you can contribute. So earlier, since it was a 12-week project, now it will be a 10-week project as compared to earlier as a 12-week, or you could call it like a 16-week, because we had a total duration of 4 months where you're contributing. So now it will be a shorter duration, and the number of hours that will be contributing will be lesser as compared to others. But now other bigger one is that either you can be enrolled in an post secondary. That means that you have to be graduated from your high school, right? In case you are under one of these programs, you can contribute, which is the same as earlier. But in case you have also graduated from your academic program and you are under some kind of a licensed coding school. So what does that mean is, like, let's say you're part of a coding boot camp, even then you can actually come and contribute to one of those projects. So in case you have graduated within 1 year of your graduation, and even if you're part of not a college but like a certified or a licensed coding boot camp, coding school that is taking coding classes, you can come and contribute to open source Google Summer of Code. So it has become much more inclusive, right? And that is why a few of the changes that, and the reason why Google Summer of Code has made these changes are definitely due to the COVID times, because a lot of the students found it very difficult to actually work from their home in a virtual environment. So a few of the changes that were including more number of students, improving upon the quality, improving upon the current situation, looking at, since a lot of the students will be working from home even for the year of 2021, these changes were made to incorporate and get more and more number of students actually getting started and getting contributing to Google Summer of Code. So that should give you an insight on a few of the major changes. So again, like, the changes are definitely in the right direction, as they are increasing the community which can actually contribute to these changes in Google Summer of Code. Coming on to a few of the other questions that people have, before we jump onto those questions, I would just like to quickly go through a few of the other slides that were remaining, and quickly, just give me 1 second, I'll quickly present. So apart from Google Summer of Code, these were like some of the other programs that you can contribute to. And like, you must have already talked about Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration during the month of October. You can contribute to open source. There's a program that is organized by DigitalOcean along with support from Dev2 and GitHub. And again, like, let's say you apply for Google Summer of Code, you don't get selected, you can always apply next year, and you'll be having much more experience in terms of understanding how you could get started, right? And always keep in mind that don't give up. And the most important thing is that start early, start right now by contributing to open source programs, join the communities of the organizations that you aspire to be with, showcase that you are interested in their projects, contribute to those, and you'll definitely stand a very huge chance of actually getting selected to these programs. But do just remember that these programs are not designed as a way of just getting another internship, but it is more towards contributing to open source and contributing to these organizations and staying in touch with them, and maintaining that kind of relationship with these organizations as well. So don't give up, right? And most of the time that you will be spending right now will be sort of going through various organizations, learning new technologies, and understanding the code bases of these organizations, right? And one of the biggest open source contribution perks are obviously the stipend, right? From these programs, the experience of actually working on a real world project using real world technologies and production grade technologies, and also the opportunity to go to various conferences, although most of them are actually happening virtually this year, and in the next year as well. But you'll get the opportunity to be invited over to talk about your open source experiences, or specifically get invited with stipend and with completely free of cost travel to conferences around the globe. And these are some of the conferences: the Linux Foundation conference, the React conference, Women's Tech Maker, Apple WWDC, Google Winked. These are some of the programs and slash conferences that are inviting over a lot of different open source project maintainers, contributors, and you can have a look at those. But just one thing to keep in mind is that when you are applying for actual jobs, this won't happen. As you see, you're still required to have a decent understanding of your DS algo, that is the data structures and algorithm. Although a program like Google Summer of Code or such open source programs, in case you have experience working in them, will help raise your resume higher as compared to the competition. And what we have learned about open source is that it is basically having a sharing of a common number of goals that everyone is contributing to the code, and the result is that the source code that you apply is free for everyone, can be accessed by everyone, and that is the real essence of open source. Now I can quickly go and talk about a few of the other questions that were made. One was, tell us about the MLH fellowship. So the MLH fellowship is a completely new program that was launched this year itself. Basically, in case you don't know about Major League Hacking, they are a company based off in the United States that used to organize a bunch of different hackathons, and they still do. And they are the largest, organization that conducts hackathons. So this year they also wanted to go ahead and work on open source, and they wanted to contribute to open source. So there are specifically the first ever cohort of MLH fellowship started off in the month of May this year, and it was completely open source, and it followed a similar model to Google Summer of Code, where you had a bunch of different organizations coming in and contributing to Google Summer of Code. But unlike Google Summer of Code, now it has three major programs. One is the open source one, which is the most reminiscent of Google Summer of Code, where you have a bunch of different open source organizations which you can contribute to. Some of these include Facebook, AWS, Dev2, Homebrew. So there are a bunch of different organizations that you can contribute to. There is the Explorer program, which is more sort of based towards improving your personal projects and portfolio, where you are given 2 weeks to build a project on a particular theme, and this goes on during your entire 12-week program. And finally, you have the externship, which is basically providing you internship opportunities with MLH. But the most relevant out of all of these is the open source one. And the MLH fellowship, unlike Google Summer of Code, does not happen just once a year. It will happen 4 times in a year, starting from from January to March, then from April to June, then from September to October, and then finally. So it happens 3 times in an entire year, or 3 or 4 times in an entire year, depending on the program. And you can apply at any point of time, even right now, to actually apply for whichever part of the year you actually want to apply for. So currently the applications are open for early 2021, that is for winter 2021 and spring, and for May of 2021. And again, like the general process for applying to the MLH fellowship is that you first fill a very long, detailed application which talks about your experiences, which talks about your projects, and then you have an interview with one of the people who talk about your inspiration behind joining the open source program or the MLH fellowship. In case you get selected in that, then you have a technical interview based on a few of the projects that you mentioned in your application. And in case you get selected for that, then you are selected in either one of the three tracks, that is the externship or the open source one. And again, in case you have more questions, you can go to fellowship.mlh.io for going over and reading over more of it. Or you can always connect with me, and I would love to take a, in case you have any doubts with the MLS Fellowship. And just to give a brief background, the MLS Fellowship is officially powered and supported by GitHub, right? Like Google Son of Code is supported by Google, MLS Fellowship is supported by GitHub. They are the official GitHub partners. And the next question by Harshal is how to get started with TensorFlow.js. Now, the context is slightly different from the program, but I would love to talk about TensorFlow.js. So I'm officially a TensorFlow.js contributor and an SIG member of the TensorFlow JS community. And just in case you would want to know, TensorFlow.js is a completely open source library that enables usage of machine learning in web development in JavaScript. So TensorFlow, for those people who might be knowing, is the most popular machine learning open source library that people use for deep learning and specifically machine learning. There was a need for machine learning in web development because we see machine learning today in all across the world. So it's a library, and in case you want to have a look, you can go to github.com/TensorFlow/TensorFlow.js. So I go to github.com/TensorFlow/TFJS. It's completely open source, as I've already said, and you can go and contribute to the code base, or you can read about TensorFlow using TensorFlow.js using TensorFlow.org, which is the official TensorFlow website, and /js, in case you want to see how to get started with any of them. In case, sort of a shameless plug, if you want to know how or like what exactly is TensorFlow, you can go to YouTube and type in TensorFlow.js Shivai Lamba. You will find a few of the sessions that I've taken over on TensorFlow.js. But again, it's a very powerful tool for those people who have been web developers and want to also work on some projects on machine learning. You can see some of the demos, see some of the models that have been made in TensorFlow.js. And one of the other questions that I got was how to make a good Google Server Code proposal. Again, that's a very good question. Thanks, Shavaz. So the most important, aspect of the proposal, and first of all, let's understand that what exactly does this proposal stand, or what is the need of this proposal? Why are organizations asking for a proposal? So the proposal showcases three things. The first thing, it tells the information about yourself. So what type of a person you are, what is your experience in software development or with open source in general, and that gives a brief background about yourself. So you're telling about yourself, like your journey so far, your background, your experience, and that gives a certain level of understanding to the mentors or to the organizations about your skills. Then the next part is, what do you think, or what do you believe in regarding the project for which you're submitting your proposal, right? So first, the first thing coming into the first part, always mention true things about yourself. Always be very honest and upfront. Just mention those things that you are good at, because these people who are reviewing your proposals will go to your GitHub. Let's say you are mentioned about a few of your projects, will go to each and every different commit that you make. They'll go to your public profiles like LinkedIn, your Kaggle profile, other profiles, and look whether the things that you're stating are actually true or not, right? So always be completely true. Always mention the quality projects that you're working on. You don't have to mention, hey, I'm so and so person, I like to cook food, I like to play cricket. So these things might come at a later stage where you're talking about your interest, but the core focus has to be on yourself and on the technologies or the kind of skill sets that you bring to the table. And always be completely honest in whatever things that you're mentioning about. Secondly, what we talked about is the organizations want to know, what do you sort of understand from the project that they have talked about. So what does that mean is that you always have to make diagrams, write in detail on what you think about the project, what you understand, and how do you interpret the project. That gives the organization, like the organizations and the mentors, to actually see whether you are able to correlate to the project. And then the third thing that they always include is the general timeline. So what does that mean? So in case in case you have a good understanding of the project, you discuss the timeline which you will follow. So this sort of shows that yes, you have understood the project and you have a general understanding of usually what time duration it might take for you to actually build a particular function or build a particular part of the project. So this shows them your technical skill level, and in terms of how you you divide your time. So talking about the second and third point, always do mention you have to be extremely clear about the project that you make. You cannot have things like, you cannot say things like, hey, I would work on this project, I would work on this feature. You have to really go deep into the understanding, and you have to be concise at the same time. You cannot just rumble upon something. You have to be concise, you have to be very clear about whatever diagrams, whatever understanding that you have for the project. So these are a few tips and tricks to make your proposal stand out. Again, it doesn't have to be 20 page long, it doesn't have to be 30 page long. Even if it is let's say 10-11 page long, uh, everything has to be very crisp and precise. And that is why it's important that before you start writing a proposal, or you write while writing a proposal, you're constantly getting feedback or in touch with the mentors, so that you truly understand the project that you are applying your proposal for, so that you have clear understanding, you have clarity, and you're able to express that clarity when you are submitting the proposal. So whether it comes to making those system diagrams, making the list of steps that you will be following, making your timeline, right? And at the same time, you're also expressing whatever you have done so far in the background that you talk about yourself. So these are a few tips and tricks on making a good Google Son of Code proposal. And you'll find a few of the other things that like resources that you can look up to, and you can always reach out for understanding that. But yes, I don't see any other questions. I would love to take over some of the other questions, and in case you want to connect with me, you can always reach out to me on my handles on Twitter @howdevelop, on GitHub @Shivalamba, and on LinkedIn @Shivalamba, in case you want to connect with me and have any questions related to Google Son of Code, Major League Hacking Fellowship, or any other of the other open source programs that today I discussed about. And I would love to also understand, in case anyone has any other questions, I would love to also take them up. Give me just 1 second. I will quickly also open this. Great. I think this should be good. Right. Okay. The next question that I see from Shabhaz is, does experience matter in getting selected in Google Son of Code? So Shabazz, in case you have experience with open source, yes, it will definitely help you out. But even if you are completely new to open source, even then you can get started. And that is why you have to develop that kind of an experience. So it's always important to start up early. So now the schedule for 2021 has been announced. You can get started by first learning about open source, about contributing to open source, learning Git, GitHub, or other such technologies. And then once, let's say, the organizations are announced, you can always reach out to those organizations, join those organizations, and start contributing to those projects. Because in case you have already contributed to a project for an organization, they know that yes, this person is regular, he has been contributing regularly, and he would be a good fit for the project in Google Son of Code as well. But generally, yes, having that kind of an experience will help you out as well. So that is why you don't have to wait till the Google Summer of Code program starts. You can always start contributing at any point of time, regardless of whether you are contributing only to Google Summer of Code, because the organizations generally have open issues and uh, such kind of projects always, like, year long. So again, like, the main focus of the Google Summer of Code program is not just as an internship, but it is for expressing or advocating the main essence of open source. And open source goes beyond just Google Summer of Code. It is just one of those programs that is advocating and making Google Summer of Code, like making open source accessible for more people. But you can always contribute throughout the year regardless of the program.
Yeah, so I think that was a really great session. So Shivai, thank you again for joining us today. And guys, if you have any more questions, you can put them in the chat. We have Shivai with us, and he'll take any questions if you have. Or I think we should conclude this because it has already been time. So I think Shivai, thanks a lot for joining us today from the GfG community. We really enjoyed this session, and I will be using this personally myself when applying for GSOC. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So yeah, with this, I think so. With this, we should move on to the awaited part of this ceremony, the closing ceremony. We should take up the results now. So before I move into that, I would like to quickly thank Geeks for giving us this opportunity to organize this event. And I would like to welcome my friend Daksh, who would join me for the results.
Yeah, hello Aditya.
Hello, Daksh. So I think before I move into this result announcement, I should quickly thank all your participants for taking out time to be part of this activity organized by student chapters across India. And also, I would like to thank Devanshu sir and Karan sir for being the support throughout this event, and our team members Devang, AVS, Nehal, and Rishu for being active members and contributing to this organization of this event. So I'll share my screen.
Also, we would like to thank all our sponsor from Geeks4Geeks, Red Bull, Blastmic, VoiceFlow.
Yeah, and so this reminds me that as participants of this event, Balsamic will offer you a 90-day extended trial of its products. Linode is offering a $20 code, which we'll share in the group. And most importantly, VoiceFlow is giving up away 1 year of pro subscription to all the participants of Game-of-Source. So this is for all participants. We'll share the respective links in the group after this ceremony is over. So let's move on to the results of this event. First, we have the web development. I think, Daksh, you want to take this up?
Yeah, so the time has come. Like, we would be announcing all the winners now. So the third prize for the contribution goes to Priyanshu. He made the points of almost, he got 0.65 points for contributing over the 10 days. The second prize goes to Harshal Rakwar. He received almost 80 points, and like, he did a very good job and pull requests, multiple pull requests. The first prize goes to Sachin Som. He got 100 points, and like, he did a good contribution to 2 projects which we covered in the 10 days. Now over to you, Aditya, for app development.
Yeah, so next we have the app development. So we had the technical team really did pull it off and brought this app alive. It has multiple screens. We have the login screen available and the register. We have the register and login screen available on this. And also we do have Google authentication on this app. And other than that, we have all the different navigation available and the about us page, which is well made. We have a contact us with a map inside it and a members page, which will be adapted for each student chapter. So I think this app really turned out great. So now moving on to the results, we have the third prize, which goes to Rakesh Servi, and the second prize is Ritik Bhandari, and our winner for the app development challenge is Tanpreet Singh Chabra. So Daksh, if you want to take up their points, I don't have the details about the points.
Yeah, so basically. So like our heartiest congratulations to all for scoring the highest point among 200 plus participants in both the Android and web development contribution. Your wins will be remembered in the glory of this event. And like we are proud to present you these amazing gifts. Like we will be reaching out to you through mail, and within 7 working days, you will be receiving most of the prizes. And the swags and Red Bull hamper will be delivered to you within a month.
Sure.
We
So I
hope this
think
has led to you a good saga of creativity and destiny. We stand hoping that you will be participating and like contributing in open source in future.
so yeah, do you want do we should also tell them about the first position and different prizes like they are what they are getting from GfG?
For sure. Aditya, you can convey them all the prices.
Yeah, so as first position, you'll be getting t-shirts and we have swags for you. And for the first position, we have 3,000 discount coupon, which will provide the first position for both web and app. Then for the second position, we have t-shirt swags and a 2,000 rupees discount coupon on Geeks for Geeks course. And for the third position, we have a 1,000 discount coupon. So I think you will all be really excited with the prizes. The participant prizes will share them in the group by today itself. And I think with this, we have come to the end of the ceremony.
Yeah.
So thank
So like it's
everyone for
not like yeah. So
yeah.
thank you everyone for joining for 2 hour session. We hope the session have guided you a good response. Like you have learned a lot, and from today you will be starting to contribute in multiple organizations and projects.
So thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone.